Hello, podcast fans. Adam Carolla here. I'm leading the fight against patent trolls who are threatening this medium. It's not about me. It's about the podcast you're listening to right now. If I go down, this show could be next. Visit fundanything.com/patent troll for more information on how you can keep podcasting alive. Thank you and mahalo.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Sam Tucker woke to find crop circles in his cornfield that spelled out the word Geico. Was this a message sent by aliens? Sam went to Geico.com and saved hundreds of dollars with great discounts. He woke the next day to find new crop patterns had formed. They spelled out, "You the man." It seems the aliens were pleased indeed.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Put your name on it. Just put your name on it. That's all I say. Be a man or a woman. Put your name on it.
Well, I'd like to hear about it, potheads.
How the fuck you gonna know how to be great if you don't study greatness? Look at the game change.
Donuts.
If you wanna battle, it's either that you will or you won't.
You know, you're not a bad-looking man, Mr. Gals.
But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
There's something wrong with us. Something very, very wrong with us. Hey, man!
Hey everybody. Alright, this is More Stories. Now, we're down an engineer. Barry Katz is my guest today on the More Stories podcast. And basically what happened is we're down an engineer. This is a beautiful Saturday on Southern California. We're on the west side. We're in Malibu at an undisclosed location. So we're trying an app to record this podcast. So please bear with us, me, because it's More Stories podcast. If the sound quality is not up to par, please give me a pass this week. All hell is broken loose in my family. A lot of you guys know my mother-in-law passed, and I was on the road. A lot of crazy things have happened in my life. So basically, we're down an engineer here at More Stories at Fake Mustache Studios. So we're doing this, just recording it on my phone, and then we're going to get it up on the internet as quickly as possible. But you guys are nothing if not positive and fantastic and great, so I appreciate your patience. And I can't emphasize enough the fact that Barry's here is so important to me, because Barry was my first guest ever on the More Stories podcast, and I was his anniversary guest on his 100th episode of his podcast, Industry Standard. And I did the whole podcast as him. So it was basically me as Barry interviewing Barry.
That doesn't sound like me.
That doesn't sound like me, man. I think I always had more of a baritone. So basically what we're going to do is have a nice podcast, and there'll be commercials in the middle. We'll get it all going. There'll be a cool song at the end. If you want to see me do stand-up in Tampa, September 20th, I'm at the Strass Center in Tampa. All my stand-up dates are at jmoore.com. Denver, for some reason, a little slow in Denver and Boulder. Denver, I'm at Comedy Works, July 30th, 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd. So if you're listening to this within 100 miles of Denver, please make the drive. I'm flying 3.5 hours to get there. You can drive too, right? That's fair. And the lifeblood of this podcast is the Amazon banner at jmoore.com. I can't emphasize that enough. Out of all the commercials, out of all the things we do, nothing really helps more than the Amazon banner. If you're going to shop at Amazon anyway, just go to jmoore.com and click the Amazon banner. It'll take you right to Amazon. It doesn't cost you anything. So instead of just having, Amazon.com on your toolbar, have jmoore.com on your toolbar. And buy things when you go to Amazon through jmoore.com. That I can't emphasize enough, and I haven't really explained it maybe as well, but that is the absolute lifeblood of the More Stories podcast. And if you buy something, I'll read what you bought on this podcast, like this homeboy, James Campbell, who lives in Sherman Oaks, California. Hey, JJ, I'm getting married on July 31st. First of all, mazel.
Mazel.
Man.
Tov.
Mazel tov?
Yes.
Is it tov or tov?
Well, you know, when you talk like me, it's tov.
Tov. You look like a big tub of shit, man. James in Sherman Oaks. Jay, I'm getting married on July 31st, and a little bit of me that my lovely bride-to-be is allowing in the service is this is awesome. My groomsmen and I get to wear Puma Classic Suede tennies. So I just bought 10 pairs of black Classic Suede Pumas on Amazon after clicking through jmoore.com. The total before tax was $483.80. Don't tell Corolla, as I love you both and I'm a loyal listener to both shows. But I'm a father as well, and I love that your Amazon cash is going to your son's college funds. Adams goes up his nose. It's a joke, everybody, by James, and we appreciate that joke. Anyway, love the radio show, Jay Moore Sports, and your podcast. Keep up the good work. P.S. If you want to give me a free plug, I'm the co-owner and manager of a little neighborhood sports bar in Canoga Park called Instant Replay. We have a full bar and 10 taps of craft beer. Our motto is great beer, cheap drinks, good times. If you don't want to give me the plug, it's all good. Bro, I'll give you the plug. Hey, James in Sherman Oaks, everybody go to, what was it called? The name of his bar? Instant Replay in Canoga Park. Everybody, thank you very much. Now, this guy's letting his groomsmen wear Puma sneakers, suede. You've been married twice, as have I.
Yes, I have.
Both of yours, you have no regrets.
No regrets.
I had an unmitigated disaster for the first one that I won't go into because I don't want there to be legal ramifications. But you're one of the few people, Barry Katz, that you got married twice, and both times that person may or may not have been your soulmate. Please expound, if you know what I mean.
Well, I will, but I'll expound on you for a second. And you should have no regrets, even in any situation, because even in the unmitigated disaster, as you would call it, that brought you to the point where you were to meet your present wife. And if you hadn't gone through that unmitigated disaster at that point in time, in that exact circumstances, you wouldn't have been ready to meet Nikki.
It is true. They always say in life there are no dress rehearsals. You've heard that expression?
Once from Lorne Michaels.
In life there are no dress rehearsals. But I had a 6-year dress rehearsal because I was unhappy when I was married the first time, and it was very difficult every day coming home to a place of stress. But I also I wasn't happy, so I didn't act probably the best version of myself. So I did get a dress rehearsal, and I knew exactly how not to behave. And then when I met my wife, it was like a curtain coming down, like game over. As Ralphie May says, pack your pussies and hit the bricks. Nothing to see here, ladies. I'm done.
I think that I really believe that. I really believe, and I didn't, when you were, I don't know how much you want to talk about this. This is why there's editing and podcasts. By the way, is this a simulcast too?
Yeah, this is on TV right now, audience channel 253.
That's not what I mean. Are we going to simulcast this? You're launching it first, and I get to launch this sometime on mine?
You want to play this? We don't know if the app works. For all we know, we're playing Candy Crush for an hour and a half. How about we get done talking, we realize we've just been playing Clash of Clans the whole time. What happened? We're recording on this app, and at the bottom of the phone, it keeps rotating ads, and I keep panicking that it's saying, all done.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, I think that...
That was good. Oh, no. Let me charge your phone for you, honey.
Well, I gotta read this. So.
Okay, honey.
But I want to go back to this thing that you just said, and you can edit if you want.
I'm not going to edit. You know the More Stories podcast. The only thing... Oh, you want to know, and I'm going to get to you.
Yes.
We've only edited 2 times ever on the More Stories podcast.
Why?
One, we were doing voices and goofing off. I won't say who the guest was, but we were saying the N-word in character as old black men, and we realized, you know what? Nothing good could come from that. Like if I was with Daryl Wright. That's what I don't understand about the rules and regulations of standards and practices. Like if Daryl Wright was sitting where you're sitting, and I said, that is the blackest shit I've ever heard in my life, we'd all laugh and have a good time. But if we were talking later on and I said that to you, somebody would isolate that, and I'd be a racist, and I'd be like Paula Deen.
Well, I said the N-word on my anniversary podcast through somebody who was channeling through me.
Yeah, because you were imitating a black person that actually said it at the time, right?
Oh, that's not what you were doing?
That is what I was doing, but it was a lot. Basically, no good was going. There was no the negatives far outweighed the positives.
Got
And
it.
the only other time was when Lita Ford was on. We had a long discussion about the Runaways getting back together because it was Lita Ford, Joan Jett, and three ladies you never heard of, Cherry Bomb. I don't know their names. But I asked Lita Ford why there was not a Runaways reunion. And she went into great detail as to one very specific person who was holding it up and said very specific things that had happened. And the next day, Lita Ford called me and said, if you don't take that out, there will never be a Runaways reunion because the person in question will sue us all. And so I was like, well, I don't want to screw up a Runaways reunion because I want to go see the concert.
There you go.
Mark Henry wanted me to edit out. He was in the Olympics. Mark Henry from WWF.
The big guy, yeah.
Actually the world's strongest man. And he was talking about the Olympic bombings in Atlanta because he was on the United States Olympic weightlifting team. And then he called me the next day and he said, hey, man, could you just take out that bombing stuff? It's just, I don't want to be talking about bombing on your podcast. And I said, no. And then I put my foot down. I said, absolutely not, because nobody knows you were an Olympian. They just think you're like Vince McMahon's puppet and you just do whatever he says and you're just this character that acts out wrestling matches. The fact that Mark Henry was an actual Olympic athlete, I thought was superseded any concerns he had about a bombing story. And the fact that he was at the bombing, it was and in all honesty, it was the most interesting part of the podcast. Mark's a really good friend of mine, but I don't think someone right now went, oh, I didn't know he was on the Olympic weightlifting team, and I wanted people to know that Mark Henry was an Olympic weightlifter and has gold medals and stuff like that. So those are the only times editing has come into play. And as you hear crickets in the background and cars and work trucks and drills and soldering irons, and the guy next door brings out the GIMP.
The GIMP. So I just wanted to, let's talk about your first marriage for a second, because I think this is important. I know that if I did this thing, which I always say, the true serum in your veins, and I said, in order to meet Nikki and have the life you have now, you've got to do those years and get married and have that life that you had, you would say, I'd do it all over again in a second.
Of course I would. And the big, let's not forget the miracle. I have a son from it. My boy Jackie, who's 11 years old, he's testing for his brown belt next month, which is scary. I was talking to Eddie If this morning, and he goes, how long before your kid can kick your ass? And I was sitting at a red light on the phone with Eddie If. He's going to be up in 2 more episodes. Eddie If will be on. And I was talking to Eddie If, and I told him Jackson was going for his brown belt next month. He goes, he's 11 years old. He goes, how many years before your son can kick your ass? And I actually thought about it, and I went, 2. 2 years. But I better hope that fight gets to the ground quick. Wow. We were sparring in the dojo. I'm sparring with my 11-year-old son, and he's punching me in the stomach, and it hurts bad. He's landing shots. So I started leg kicking my own son because he had no defense for it. And then I realized this is not how fathers and sons should be spending their time, because I am not a trained fighter. I'm a wrestler. I could wrestle all day and everybody be safe. But I really probably shouldn't be launching scuds at my kid's ACL. So I tapped out early. But Jackie boy, I love you. You're the best. And he's getting his brown belt. So I have a child. So you can never have any regrets when there's a child involved. But what's hard about divorce, this is what I've noticed about divorce, is it seems like divorced women, that sort of, and I'm not speaking about my son's mom. I'm speaking in generalities. It seems like divorced women, when they're divorced, that sort of becomes their identity, especially if you have somewhat of a celebrity to yourself. It seems like their whole identity is I'm a single mom. I'm raising a kid on my own. The father's a dick. And if you don't believe me, how many divorced women do you know that still have their husband's last name? If you hate someone and don't get along with someone so much that you're willing to get a divorce with children, why would you keep that person's name?
Well, you keep their name because you feel a little bit of love for them that you're holding into your mind that's maybe is in the back and you don't realize it's subliminal or not subliminal, subconscious. And you're thinking, I still love this person, so I want to honor their name.
Maybe in some cases. I don't think. I don't think there's any love lost between my son's mom and me. We get along okay, and we co-parent well, but there's that's definitely not the case here.
Well, I think, one thing is, I think that you would readily admit is that she figured out a way to turn her life around in a much more positive way than it was before when you were hanging out. And I think you the same. So I think it helped both of you.
I get, that great line in Casablanca? Well, I guess if I ever thought about you. I don't ever really think about it, ever. It's kind of like Vietnam. And Nick will ask me, like, what was her favorite music? And I'm like, I don't know. What did she eat? I'm like, I don't know. And Nick will be like, that's impossible. I'm like, no, I really don't remember. I for some reason I blocked it out for self-preservation or something, but.
Yeah, I like what I'm going through now is like, and I don't never really talk about it or anything like that, but it's, I'm sort of starting that process and, cause I've been separated for about almost 2 years, but I have a very unconventional situation where my ex is living in the same house with me because I think it's really important for the kids for that transition if you can make it happen and do it that way. But the difference between you and when you met Nikki and me, like out in the world, like I'm literally like Father Mulcahy out in the world. I don't think if somebody said to me like, well, you can have your soulmate and meet your soulmate who wants to be with you for the rest of her life, or you can meet somebody who'll come to your door and say, please do whatever you want to me, as long as you want, anytime you want, and there's no commitment. I think equally, I probably right now in my life, I would say, I don't know if I want either one of those things. It's this very strange thing because I look in the mirror sometimes, as you talk about honesty here, and I think like every guy and girl, please let me go on this, and I know you will, you have this list that you have when you're single. It's this list that no one knows about. It's the list, let's just say it's the list of 100 things that you want in the person that you want to be with you for the rest of your life or your next partner. So number 1 might be honesty and integrity. Number 5 might be a great sense of humor.
Isn't 1 looks? Let's be honest.
Well, for some people it might be.
I mean, some people. Nobody looks across
the room. Have you been to Disney World?
Yeah, but I don't want to marry anybody in Disney World.
Well,
when I saw my wife, and I'm going to let you finish, obviously, but when I saw my wife for the first time, the first thing that crossed my mind was, oh boy. I just wanted to get all up over it and be all a part of it. But no one looks across Walmart and sees, the overweight lady pushing a stroller and goes, wow, who's the 5?
You'd be surprised. I mean,
no.
I once had this woman, client of mine, sit on my couch. We were having a meeting, and I said, "How do you know when you feel good about yourself? Like, how do you know as a woman?" She said, "That's very easy. When I walk down the street and this great white businessman, a nice suit, walks by me and turns around to check me out, I know that I'm doing great. And if a African-American guy walks by me in a nice business suit and he turns around and he looks at me and says, 'Damn, girl,' I know I got to go to the gym."
Whitney Cummings does it on stage. It's a great bit.
So
this is Whitney, right?
It's her and a few other people.
But that was her bit.
Quasi, yeah, and for one other person.
I love when I walk down the street and a black construction worker goes, "Damn, girl, you look fine." Then I know I got to go to the gym and lose weight.
That's right.
It's a great bit. It's a great comment.
Anyway, so what I was saying is that I believe that everybody has their list. So let's say number 2 is good looks. Number 47 is they don't leave the toothpaste cap off the toothpaste. Number 87 is they don't leave the seat up and make me fall in when I go to the bathroom at 4 a.m. And everybody has their thing. So as I'm getting separated and going in this new life of mine, I look at myself and I say, okay, I got 2 kids. I'm older than most people. And I work really hard, and I spend a lot of hours working. So how many lists am I going to be on of any woman out there? I'd probably, The women are going to look like the version of women in the couch in Animal House who are going to be interested in it. You know, so for you were
you
like...
You don't think there's a girl out there going, if I can get a 50-year-old Jew that's home 4 hours every 3 days, jackpot. And maybe he's got some kids with long hair that I could help out with.
I think it's probably, because this is the other thing that's bad. It's horrible, and I feel bad saying this to the listeners, but for me, I don't know why. When I sit across from young people, like we had interns in the podcast we did for our anniversary show, several thousand of them in Jay's office, and I feel more comfortable talking to young people than if I were to talk to somebody my own age. I feel like I just don't feel as comfortable speaking with people. So if there's a woman who's my own age or even a little bit younger than my own age.
Someone your age to talk has to remove the oxygen mask.
Could be.
I thought that was going to get a way bigger laugh.
I'm sorry.
Because I shoehorned it in instead of letting you talk. I got to fucking interrupt all the time.
That's what people love about these podcasts.
It's crazy. And we'll get to the list of things we wish we could change about ourselves, because that's my number one. You talk. I'm grabbing a pen.
Uh-oh. Yeah, so it's like, so I wonder who's out there, and we all make up these stories about ourselves and what they are, and we oftentimes make up stories that are negative to try to support our philosophy of the way things are going to be. Like, I'll just give you an example of this. Is like, you know, when you're younger, you make up positive excuses of what's going to happen. You know, it's like you act out, you know, hitting the home run to win the game. You act out hitting the basket at the buzzer. But when you get into real life, and after you've, you know, had your soul crushed several hundred times in life, you start making up stories of how to support things that aren't going to happen in your life. So I'm readily admitting here, and I'm being a hypocrite because I feel like I'm very positive, is the fact that in my personal life, I'm the antithesis of who I am in my business life. In my business life, it doesn't matter how many no's that I get in a row on anything, and you know this based on your career. It's like, you could be like, what the fuck, Katz? How come this isn't happening? How come this isn't happening? And I don't care how many no's I get that don't make any sense why they're a no. I'll just keep going until I get the yes. In my personal life, sometimes I'll make up stories as to why things aren't going to happen the way they should happen, as opposed to just going for it and doing that. And I don't know why that is, but and I don't know if that's common for a lot of people. But for you in your personal life, once that thing hit and there was that, you know, I like to say that hole blown through you from that ending of that relationship, you weren't a guy who just like said, hey, I'm just going for it right now. You weren't like, it wasn't like, I'm going to rebound and do this. It's like you were waiting for the right person. I'll never forget, and we've talked about this maybe one time before, when I called you about that Vegas job, that guest starring role. And it happened rather...
On the TV show Las Vegas.
And it happened rather quickly. And I remember calling you the night before, and I'm paraphrasing, but I said, Jay, please be careful. And you said, what are you talking about, Barry? I said, Nikki Cox. I mean, you got to be careful. I said, what are you talking about? I said, because she's charismatic, and you're going to fall in love with her. She's that kind of person. I've known her my whole life. And in business, one of the hardest things when you meet women who are in the business is because their whole aura in the business, a movie star, a television star, a host, is, besides Barbara Walters, is to make you fall in love with them. You want to feel like you want to, I know it sounds crazy, but as an audience member watching a television show like Happily Ever After, it's unspoken, but when Nikki goes on the screen or in Vegas, you want to sleep with her. You want to be with her. You want to know what it's like to be with her. And so as a businessman like myself, I knew her since she was like a teenager. The conscious effort I would always make when I talk to her, and right now you can't see, but I'm holding up my hand so I can only see Jay's face. It's like the conscious effort you make in business as a guy to treat every woman like the person that they are and not the person that they're trying to get the reaction of on television is very difficult. And I feel like I'm really good at that.
You mean your hands over your face so you can't see your boobs?
Can't see their body, can't see anything, just focusing in on who they are as a person.
Right.
But I knew that when you know...
We're fine. It just went to my lock screen. Go ahead. Keep going.
I just want to make sure. And I we'll have that edited. We don't do any editing here, man. But I knew that when you went there, the way you were at that point in time, you were like an open vessel. You were ready. You were ready for something. And she was the kind of person that if there weren't 100 guys trying to, this is the thing I want to share with you. You'll love this. Any girl listening who's any semblance of any charisma at all or any personality. This is the difference between you and every guy your own age, okay? At the end of the month on your coffee table, okay, if you were to print up from your iPhone or take all the cards or whatever and spread them out on your coffee table, you wouldn't have a clean spot on the coffee table every month. Every month there's all these numbers of these guys who want to take you out, go out with you, or sleep with you, or whatever it is. And they're all there, and you're thinking to yourself, which one, should I take any of these, or should I just throw them out? And you clear the deck every month. You might throw them out. You might save them somewhere just as an ego boost or whatever. But you rarely call, like, you might call 1% of 1% of those guys that are all trying for you. A guy your own age, his coffee table has it looks like there's 2 fortune cookies on there with the fortunes on. He's got nothing. Even if he's good at what he does, he's got nowhere near the amount of numbers that you have. And so Nikki, when you went there, you know that this is a woman who every day there's 10 people trying to go out with her. There's probably roses in her thing, in her dressing room, some guy who wants her attention. And then you're showing up. And when you're showing up, when I talked to you that night before, because I knew that she has this thing, that she has this great comedy mind that really nobody really knew about until now, where she writes a lot of, or most of your material now, and is the muse behind things. But back then, nobody knew that. But when I was around her, she had this thing where she could be just so quiet and just come in with the book, but she also had this thing where she could just hit you with a line that was just so fucking funny.
And she radiates sex.
Yeah, radiates. It's there's only 2 people in my life that I've met that radiated more sexuality than Nikki. One person. It's Nikki Cox, and one other person that I met about 8 years ago was Jessica Simpson. Those are the
Jessica Simpson?
Yeah. 10.
All of a sudden my wife doesn't, you just took the bloom off that rose.
10 years ago, Daisy Duke.
Oh, because she was working with Dane on that movie.
That's right. You have no idea what.
No, because Dane wouldn't tell me. You're right, I don't have any idea. He's like, oh, she's a good kid, man. I'm like, stop with the good kid, yes or no?
But the only difference between Jessica Simpson, the main difference between Jessica Simpson and Nikki Cox is that Nikki Cox had this sense of humor that was incredible, this intelligence that was incredible, everything. Jessica Simpson, I'm not discounting who she was as a person or is, but it's a different kind of person. Anyway, so the night before, I was sharing with you because I knew that you were the only person I knew that could go toe-to-toe with her. Comedically. And that's what her challenge was. She could have any good-looking guy or any guy, whatever, who wanted a stockbroker or this or an actor or whatever. But Nikki was about the intelligence and the sense of humor combined. And so I knew if you went toe-to-toe with her that she would fall in love with you and you would be just gone. And then it would all be over. So that's why I said be careful.
You said she was charismatic. And in full disclosure, Barry goes, be careful. And I go, what? He goes, you're working with Nikki Cox. I just want you to be careful. And I go, is she flammable? Is something going to explode? Is she a biohazard? Is it like putting water on a grease fire? And he goes, listen, this is what Barry actually said to me. The night before I was supposed to do my guest spot in Las Vegas. Listen, I've known Nikki Cox since she was 15 years old. She's charismatic. She's beautiful. And then for some reason, Barry laid on this bizarre affect to his voice. He goes, she's dynamic. So to this day, anytime we're talking about any living human being, like Barry, we'll always joke the inside. He's dynamic. And Barry gave the toast at my wedding, one of the greatest toasts of all time, because Nick and I were trying to figure out who could give the toast at our wedding. Because as you know, when you do a wedding, and as our man that just emailed the show, James in Sherman Oaks, he was about to get married, no matter what you do on your wedding, 14 people are going to be pissed off. And anytime your wedding comes off, they're going to go, oh, please, suede Puma sneakers. I had to watch that as my little girl gets walked down the aisle. The groom's wearing, I don't know why I said it like Alan Arkin. Pates, suede Puma sneakers? That's what we're doing? Any wedding you have, 14 people for the rest of their lives, no matter what you do, for the rest of your life, I think that's a fair, let's say 8 people.
No, it's true.
For the rest of your life, 8 people, when they think of your wedding, get a knot in their stomach, and they can't wait to look at the person next to them and tell them how you fucked it all up for everybody.
And you're doing everything in your
for
power
everybody else
at the wedding for everything. You don't even think about yourself.
Nothing. My wife and I never sat down at our wedding. We went from table to table. Good. I'm used to the movies where you just sit there like a mob boss and people come up and they give you pillowcases filled with money. We were going from table to table to table like, how's your room that we paid for? Is that okay? We had to put up like 80 relatives. It's like, this is not how weddings work. You're supposed to get yourself to the town and find your own goddamn hotel room. My family, my mom and dad, my dad's like, these sheets. I swear to God, at the fucking Hotel Bel Air. But you cannot get, there's swans.
This is like the greatest hotel in the world.
There are swans in a lake in the yard behind a giant, like, gun-turreted, old, like, pre-war rock wall with trees and woods. There are swans in a lake on the grounds of this hotel. That's how fancy it is. And my wife and I, the night before our wedding, actually had to go to my parents' hotel room to make sure they were okay. And my dad goes, I don't know where I'm supposed to get a snack. I mean, room service shuts. I go, room service is 24 hours. Yeah, but all they have, I'm not going to throw my parents under the bus, but just so you guys know, anybody planning a wedding, no matter what, first of all, it's not your day, it's her day. And for the brides out there, it's not your day, it's your mom's day. Make no mistake, you are getting married and putting on an event to make your mom happy, and that will serve you better in the long run than any single decision you make. When you and your mom are arguing over what color roses should be in the entryway, whatever the fuck your mom says, look your mom in the eye and go, oh my God, I'm so glad you helped me with this decision because you're right. But no matter what you do, 8 people are going to look back at your wedding and go, I guess.
It's true. I'm going to one in Temecula right after this podcast.
Who's Mexican people?
No, Owen Smith. He's a talented comedian writer, does a podcast called Alias Smith and Leroy.
Well, let's not plugging me and you now. Let's not bring him into the fold. Wait till he's a married man.
All right. There will be editing in this podcast.
Sure, man.
Anyway, so the wedding.
So Barry goes, she's charismatic, she's beautiful, she's dynamic. So I met my wife on the set of Las Vegas, and I saw her for the first time from about 150 feet. She was going from her trailer to the set for rehearsal. She was wearing sweatpants and a wife beater. And she was smoking a cigarette, and her hair were in rollers. And I was like, whoa. It was the hottest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was lust at first sight, love at first sight. And then when I spoke to her, she was so goddamn funny. I'll tell you the moment where I realized this person has to be in my life for the rest of my life. Usually, you know this more than anybody, Katz, because you work with comics and actors your entire life as a manager. When you're on the set, like when there's a lull in the action, which is most of the time, you'll say something and it cracks everybody up. And there's like 6 standard lines, right? Like right before we do the take, I look at my wife now, but at the time I've known her 2 hours. And I look at her and I lean in and I go, so do I look down the barrel of the camera? Do I look just right down? And usually an actress or an actor will laugh, or if they're idiots, they'll go like, no, you look at me. Like and then you know that person is not long for this world in the mental deportment.
You know what's funny is that when you got to Jerry Maguire and you stood next to Tom Cruise the first scene up, you sort of said the same thing and you were serious.
Yeah, I didn't know what the hell was going on. But Tom straightened me out. He was a good man. So I said to my wife, do I look right down the barrel? And she goes, yeah. But I knew she was joking too. And then I'm like, wow, it was so fast. And then as I was thinking how fast it was, she looked at me and she said, paging Mr. Herman. Paging Mr. Herman, you have because on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, when he plays the bellman, he looks down the barrel of the camera and they dub his voice. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me that this 10 out of 10 hot lady is quoting Pee-wee's Big Adventure, tagging, and then they say action, and I'm like, huh? What? I don't know what the hell was going on. So fast forward, my wife and I on our first date, she takes me to the nativity scene on Ocean Boulevard, just because it's too bizarre for words. If you live in another part of the country.
Wait a second, time out. How do you ask her out on the first date?
That day when we were filming, my character asked her to marry him, and she said no. So then during a break in the action, I was like, all right, this is already too fitting. We already have a storybook ending because I asked her to marry me the first day I met her, even though it was in character. So I said, hey, do you want to go hang out sometime? And I didn't know that she had just been dumped by Bobcat 6 weeks earlier. So she was living at her parents' house.
Yes, you did.
Oh yeah, I did know that. Oh wow, that's right, I forgot.
Because
there was two, real quick. You represented Bobcat Goldthwait. You're right. I wasn't dodging it. I just
represented.
I misremembered. What happened was I was offered Las Vegas twice, and both times I turned it down.
Yes, you did.
And you go, that's probably a good thing because Nikki Cox works there, and she's with Bobcat. And the two of you together, man, forget it. Fireworks are gonna go off. You called your shot. But what's amazing is her mom, Big Mama Got It All, Terry K. Cox, who's no longer with us. By the way, anybody that likes, Big Mama Got It All, my wife's mom who passed, she came up with that name because when she used to wrestle Maddie, my brother-in-law, when he was like a little boy, her wrestling name was Big Mama Got It All. So when I came up with the character on Corolla's podcast, that's it. So anytime I do Big Mama Got It All, pour a little 40 out on the curb for Terry K. Cox. Oh, okay. Oh, you did that for me? Oh, you met Nikki Cox? So what happened is Nick came home from work that first day, and she said to her mom goes, how was work? And she goes, it was okay. We have a guest star. And her mom goes, who is it? And she goes, a comedian, Jay Mohr. And her mom goes, uh-oh. And she goes, what? And Terry goes, he's going to fall in love with you. It's the first thing her mom said. So you called it on your end. Big Mama Got It All. R.I.P. my love. I love you. Terry K. Cox, TK. She called it on her end. I asked Nick out that day if she wanted to go out. And she said, sure.
No, but how did you do it?
I said, do you want to go out sometime and hang out? And she goes, sure. Just effortless like that. But she said it so casual that it was almost like asking a guy if he wants to go hit golf balls, and he's like, sure, you're not going to blow the guy on the fairway. So I wanted to make it stunned me how quickly she said it, that there was huge ambiguity. So I circled back around 20 minutes later. I go, just so you know, when I said hang out, I meant when we go out, I want it to be an actual date. I want to take you on a date. I want us to be dating. And she goes, I understand and I appreciate the clarification because I'd like to categorize and name and file every aspect of my social calendar.
All right, so you want to take her out on a date.
Yes.
You're in control.
I was never in control.
No, but
you don't understand. I was lost at sea the moment I saw her. I was trying to be in control. Well, but you know the old expression wow, she took me out of my game? Yeah. It took me out of my game. It's like taking Babe Ruth and making him fullback at Notre Dame. It's what am I doing out here?
But if she took you out of your game, you don't, the same day you're with her on a set, you don't say, you want to go out, hang out sometime, sure, and then you re-clarify.
I was leaving nothing to chance. I needed this woman in my life for the rest of my life. In fact, Katz, I said that as Russell Brand. In fact, Katz, this geezer you're talking to, a beautiful white ribbon of a fuvula. I was so mesmerized and taken by her and completely head over heels gone that I was willing to never have sex with her and just be friends. That was cool with me. I just needed her in my life. And so far that I was even willing to be the guy, we're fine. To be the guy in her life that she calls to complain about the guy she is having sex with. Like, I was willing to pick up my phone in the 1 a.m. and have her explain how the guy she's sleeping with is a jerk, and I was going to be that, like the gay friend.
All right, well, if that's the case, okay. So you leave her, okay? You leave her, you're not in her presence anymore, and you have hours and hours and hours to get out of your game and get back in your game and plan out your first date with this girl where you pick her up and you do whatever, you're in control, and you end up her taking you to a nativity scene.
It was the best.
But where didn't you have a thing planned out? Like
no, nothing.
How?
Because I had no brain. It'd be like if you were like at a Led Zeppelin concert in 1975 and somebody walked up and just said, "Could you multiply 14 by 15 right now?" You'd be like, "What? Huh? What? Wait, what? Say what? Oh, huh? Say what now?" What happened was she left the set first. She was wrapped for the day. And I was just obsessively thinking about Nikki Cox. She hates to be called Nikki. If you guys want to email me, it's Nick, N-I-K. And all you people going, when is she going to get on Twitter? She's never going to be on Twitter. And as she said, no one, because Twitter is filled with haters, no one on Twitter could possibly loathe her more than she loathes her. Her words. And it's the truth. So she doesn't need Twitter for you guys to pile on and go, "You fucking suck." Because she's one of the few people that'll go, "I know, but you don't even know the half of it, how much I think I suck." Poor girl. Listen. She leaves the set first. I'm on set by myself for like 3 hours. And I'm just going, there's a clock in my head. The longer she's not with me, and I know she had just broken up with Bobcat, or he dumped her I think it was 4, 5, 6 weeks, thereabouts. I know the odds of, hey man, she could go to the market and some guy could go, "What are you doing right now?" Like, she's the kind of lady that some guy would be, like George Clooney would go like, "Hey, do you want to go to my castle in Italy right now? I got a jet." She's that kind of girl that guys would have offered her stuff like that their whole lives. So I am panicking. The time is slipping through my fingers. I go to my trailer when I'm wrapped for the night. It's 9 o'clock at night. She wrapped at about 6 o'clock at night on the set of Las Vegas. In my trailer, there is a blue piece of script paper. There's all different colors of scripts. For every time there's a revision in the script, they change the color of the paper. So when you actually film the show or the movie, you got like 14 different color pages. It's just how they do it. There's a blue piece of paper of script turned upside down, and there's handwriting, and it says, "I think you might need this." And there was a fake mustache laying on the blue piece of paper, like a quality one, like you get from like a makeup trailer. And then she wrote XOXO Nick. So that's why this is Fake Mustache Studios. But for some
I'm embarrassed to say I don't get it.
There's nothing to get. It was just weird enough.
You might need this.
Like, you might need a fake mustache. Like, just here. Like, if I just handed you like a transformer and I just said, "Hey man, I think you might need this, bro." Like, it was just a joke.
Okay.
But that was her letting me know that she was still interested. But then I started going, "Oh my God, she was in here. She was in my trailer. She must like me. Otherwise, she would just wait for me to call. She could have just gone home and had sex with any celebrity man or athlete in the world. But she went in my trailer, there was a fake mustache, and she just wrote, "I think you might need this." And then she just wrote XOXO Nick. I call her. She's living at her parents'. And I said, "What are you doing tonight?" She goes, "Nothing." I go, "Would you like to go out tonight?" Because I know every moment that passes, the odds could be that some guy's going to go in and take her away. I asked her for her parents' house line in case the cell phones didn't work. I was going to call the house phone at her parents' house in Santa Monica. I asked for the directions. I got home. I showered. I went right to her house. And then I said, "What do you want to do?" And she said, "I don't know." And then she took me to the nativity scene on Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica, which, by the way, is an amazing thing to witness because it took all Sears, Roebuck, and JCPenney mannequins, and they dressed them up like Joseph and Jesus in these little cages and they act out the nativity scene.
And there's several of them.
It's amazing. Yeah,
and when you look at them, you're looking at them, and past you, you're looking at the ocean.
So that night we went to eat at a place called Swingers. And for some reason...
It's a cool diner, like a 50s diner in that area.
In Santa Monica. And for some reason, I hit on the waitress in front of her. Like I was still like a mental patient from my previous entanglement. Like I didn't know how to behave.
Do you remember what you said to the waitress?
Just not like, hey, you're beautiful. Just nothing like do you want to get out of here? Because I was with Nick. But it was weird. It was not and if you had a time machine, you definitely would not have said those things.
How'd she react?
She didn't bring it up until like 4 years later. Like, that was weird. Why did you hit on the waitress that night? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea why. So then that night, we eat, we laugh, we goof off, we joke. I remember where I was when I put my arm around her. We were on Santa Monica and Ocean, and I put my arm around her as we were crossing the street. And that was like skydiving. Like to get from the open door of the plane to actually jump out of the plane. That's what it felt like to go from standing next to Nikki Cox to putting your arm around Nikki Cox. And then we go home. I take her back to her parents' house, and I park up the street because I figured like we would make out a little. But I knew I was not going to try to have sex or anything like that. So we kiss a little bit.
You make the move.
Yes.
In the car?
Yeah, in my truck. I had an Escalade with spinning rims. That's what a douche I was. If you really want to know where my head was at before I met my wife, I had an Escalade with spinning rims. What else do you need to know about what a lost soul I was? So we kiss a little bit in the car, and I tell her good night. And she says good night. And she opens the door to my truck. And
she opens the door? You don't go around and open the door?
No, I'm not. I didn't. I didn't know what the hell was going on. It's like being a high schooler and all of a sudden you're facing Randy Johnson in Seattle. Like, I don't know. It was fucking, they say the game slowed down for me. I was in hyperspace. I was lucky to be breathing.
Just to let you know.
Always hold the door, man.
No, well, that too, but she felt the same way.
No. And I'll tell you, this is the best part of the story.
You don't think she was challenged?
No.
Okay.
Because this is what happened.
All right.
She opens the door to get out of my truck. She comes back. She leans like she's getting out. And then before she gets out, she leans back. She takes my right arm, which is on the console in the middle, and she takes my hand. Mm-hmm. And she goes to kiss my fingers, and she puts my hand down her throat to my wrist, pulls my hand out of her mouth and throat, and says, good night. And slams the door behind her. And I sat there for 15 minutes going, humana, humana, humana. Like, down, it was like, if you would fist someone's asshole, like how it goes all the way into their
I've
ass. I've heard too. Like, I've never fucking fisted anybody. But she literally took my hand and put my hand down her throat to, I would say, halfway past my palm. And then she just pulled it out. Like I felt her throat with my fingers. And she goes, good night. She goes home and her mom goes, how was the date? And she says, and I quote, awful. He didn't even try to fuck me. So no, she had a very different speed. Game speed for her was exactly. And I was like the minor leaguer just swinging. Like I had no idea what was happening.
This is so, I'm going to just go in here because this is one thing of the guys.
Hey, listen to these commercials real quick.
Technology makes a lot of things easier, like using the post office. My name is Jay Mohr, and I use Stamps.com because I can do everything at the post office right from my own computer. Best of all, it's super easy, and I don't have to be a tech expert. With Stamps.com, all I have to do is get a computer and a printer to buy official U.S. postage for any letter, any package. Stamps.com does everything else. All their expertise gets utilized. They're going to send you a digital scale like they sent me. Automatically, that scale will calculate the exact postage for what you're sending. Stamps.com will even help you decide the best class of mail based on your needs. Then print the postage, hand it to the mailman. You're done. Plus, Stamps.com makes it easy to print postage from popular business software like QuickBooks, Outlook, and more. I use Stamps.com. I want you to use it too. Right now, use my last name, Mohr, M-O-H-R, for this special offer. No risk trial. Plus a $110 bonus offer. That includes the digital scale and up to $55 free postage Don't wait to go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in more. That's Stamps.com. Enter more.
When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to Geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
Jay Mohr here. DDP Yoga is a proven exercise program that has changed the lives of thousands of people around the world, including me. I started DDP Yoga about 4 months ago, and I've lost 11 pounds. It's called yoga, but this is not your mama's yoga. Diamond Dallas Page, former heavyweight champion pro wrestler, developed this program as a high-energy, assertive way to get fit while being easy on your joints. If you need a workout that helps you build strength, increase flexibility, and burn calories, Diamond Dallas Page is offering my listeners of More Stories podcast a great deal on his most popular workouts for a very limited time. The Max Pack includes 15 workouts that can take anyone from beginner to an elite athlete. The 5-DVD set also comes with a nutrition guide, meal planner, handy chart of the core positions, and downloadable MP3 workouts. Go to ddpyoga.com/jmohr or click the banner on jmohr.com to take advantage of a special offer only available to my listeners. The More Stories faithful, you get this. I've done DDP Yoga. I have lost 11 pounds. I look good. I feel good. My joints are healthy. I'm not banging up my knees and ankles and hips because I'm running on cement. Once again, it's ddpyoga/jmohr or click the banner at jmohr.com. You got to get in on this deal. I'm speaking from experience. It works. I lost 11 pounds doing DDP Yoga.
All right, you can say you go the guy thing.
This is what's so weird, because guys, I don't think understand this, okay? So Nikki went to her mom and said, it went horrible. He didn't even try to fuck me. So a guy will think to himself, well, if I reach for her hand, I'm not talking about a guy who just wants to have a one-night stand. I'm talking about a guy who's just feeling out, trying to figure out his life. If he holds a woman's hand, what does a woman think when a guy holds her hand? She's thinking, okay, it's on. Something's going to happen here. And then if he puts his arm around her, okay. And then if he kisses her, and for a little while of time, it's like she's made a decision that she's open to something happening. And she's psychologically gearing herself up to, okay, let me see what can happen. So as a guy, if you grab a girl's hand or hug her or kiss her at the end of the night, you could be sending the message to her that you're saying, hey, you want something here. You want a relationship here. Now, I know there's women like Nikki at the time that was like, oh, well, it went horrible. You didn't even try to fuck me.
In her defense, not in her defense, if I'm speaking for her, after Bobcat dumped her, she was fully prepared to just go on a fuck bender. And because she'd never been single before in her life. The last thing she thought was, I know, I'll meet another comic with a kid that just got a divorce, and I'll hook up with him. But that's just the divine intervention, and we're all lucky for it.
And what did I'm just curious, because this is something, it's happened to me recently. I was on a, I guess you could call it a date, where I'm sitting across from somebody at a dinner. Well, Whitney Cummings once said something to me that was fascinating, what's dealing with technology and the way it is, similarly to what you said originally to Nikki. She said, you're doing a set at the Comedy Store or wherever you are, and you're just finished. It's like midnight, and you get a text from a comic or something, and he says, I know you're at the store. I'm at the Improv. You want to get a cup of coffee at Norm's, when you're done? And you say yes. And then she said 5 minutes in, as a woman, you're just talking and having your coffee, and you're saying to yourself in your mind, is this a date? Does this guy think this is a date? Because I don't think it's a date. I'm just hanging out. But does this guy think it's a date? And that's the way it normally is. And what I wanted to share with you, with the women and how different women are, I was on this date, and this hostess came up to me, and she was wearing like an evening gown. She was looking, she looked really, really beautiful. Sorry. And I'm on a date, and she's very aggressive with me, similar to how you were maybe with the waitress at your date with Nikki.
No. I wasn't aggressive with the waitress. I just said things that you wouldn't say if you were on it. Maybe I didn't know if it was particular. Maybe I didn't believe it was a date, so I was just in case of emergency break glass.
But this hostess was doing that. She was saying things that were very...
But you were not on the date with the hostess.
No.
So you're on a date and the hostess is going overboard to get Katz.
Yeah, and like I'm telling you, how often does a hostess or a host come to your table? Maybe once during the dinner, twice to see how you're doing. This woman came over 5 times. I'd never met this woman in my life. And she had an accent, a heavy accent. She was a beautiful woman. I love women who are
Mr. Katz, I have ways of making you talk with my pussy. Do you have an open mic night in my pussy?
Well, believe it or not, where you're going to a place, you're tipping this story off, and you don't even know it.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Story of my life.
No, it's good. So, and just observing this, whatever, and she came over like a 4th time, and I said, can I just ask you, like, why are you so aggressive to me? She's like, well, there's something about you that I like, and I just want to let you know
in front of your date.
Yes, that I like you. And again, I don't even know if it was a date.
Was it Whitney Cummings?
No. And I say, well, what? I don't understand. She says, don't worry, honey. I just, I only date black guys.
Screech!
I said, why do you only, first of all, I said, I can tan. No, I didn't.
You wouldn't do that to your date because you're a class act.
That's right. Well, I try to be. And so she says, don't worry, I only date black guys. I said, why do you only date black guys? Is it because of the stereotype or whatever it is? And she says, no. The reason why I only date black, you date white guys and it's just always this roundabout thing. There's this navigation. They're trying to figure out how you're feeling. If you're saying the right thing, should they say this? Should they navigate this way or that way? A black guy just comes right up to you and you know exactly what's happening, even if you're offended by it. They'll just walk right up to you.
Yeah, girl, I want to get in that ass.
Yeah, they'll just come right up to you and say, listen, what are you doing tonight? Let's go. I want to be with you. I'm attracted to you. It's on.
Because tonight, baby, I want to get freaky with you.
That's playing in the car when you get in.
And so she's telling me this stuff and whatever, and I listen to it. And I said, well, are all people like that? Aren't there any white guys that are like that? And she's like, not that I've encountered. And then she leans over and she says this to me. I'll never forget this as long as I live. She says, look, I've already got one pussy. I don't need another one. And she walked away.
She's calling you out.
I know.
She wanted you to be the man.
I know that.
But she didn't care that you were on a date.
She did not
Maybe
care.
Maybe that's what attracted her.
And I really love that about the balls that she had about doing that.
So how long between that sentence were you,
Look, I haven't been what you're
trying to keep it kind of clean.
He's about to say balls deep, because I know him. I personally, in the past,
I would never. How long before you were?
Well, as you probably know, because you know me very well, I literally have been like a saint since I've been separated for no apparent reason but my psychological mind.
Katz has been celibate.
I mean, it's maybe a little bit, not totally celibate, but maybe I slipped once. But, I
let Rex Ryan masturbate me with his feet, man. Don't die on me, Katz. You're dropping like flies around here.
So anyway, going to your story like that, but the thing is that I remember also us having a conversation, because this is the thing, if you're a guy and you're with a woman who you're like gonna fall in love with, your life doesn't function, your mind doesn't function, your body doesn't function, and it's like,
I got a story about that.
It's like you just can't, you'll be there and you'll be like, I don't know what happened, honey. Must have been that pepperoni pizza. It's just like, but you're just psychologically fucked.
Do you remember I came to you, our first date, not our first date, the first date that we were going to consummate, I had problems.
I guess so. And what did I tell you?
I'm going to tell the story right now. I said, Katz, put it this way. Maybe she's like a black man, because on the date, it was New Year's Eve, and she said, let's go to the Hotel Bel Air. They have like this great, dinner. We can dance. It'll be fun, people watching. I go, sure. She goes, but bring a change of clothes, because I got us a room. So right there, you're like, oh my God. There's no ambiguity. And the next day, I don't know, it wasn't the next day. It was like I don't know. But after that date, I'm talking to Katz. We were face to face, and I go, I don't know what happened, but I couldn't get an erection. And then when I did get an erection, it kept coming in and out of consciousness. It was like I had like problems with the plumbing. And
this is pre-pills.
Barry goes, you know what that means, don't you, man? I go, what? He goes, that means you're in love with her. And he was right. So for all you guys out there that can't get it up, if you don't have erectile dysfunction, it means you really love it. I don't know how that psychology comes into play, but it was the case for me.
Yeah.
And then later I got addicted to Vicodin and NyQuil. That affected my erection as well. But that's a different story that we've talked about on this podcast many times. What changed the most about you when you got married? For me, I didn't realize how much I changed until I have other comics on the podcast and they go, once you met her, you got calm and you mellowed out and you became nice and nothing ever really seems to bother you anymore. Like you noticed a seismic shift in my behavior when I met her. And it wasn't like I'm trying to act a certain way, you know, to keep her in the house. It was just Kelly Carlin was on the podcast and she said, that's your natural self. She's the transcendental Buddhist meditation guru. And she goes, no, that's your natural self. And she was just a nice garden was set up and she provided the proper sunlight, water, and earth for you to just go to the net. Basically, you become the person that you always wish you could be. So what changed when you got married? Did your behavior change?
You know, I always say to everybody that it's very hard to hold the mirror up in front of you and know how you've changed and things of that nature. I personally, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think I changed that much because whatever happened personally in my life, it stays in the house. I try to have it stay in the house. So when I go on the outside, I want to be sort of the same person I've always been. I think the thing that's probably changed the most is time, you know, because as you know, when I first started in the business, I would be in the clubs every night and I'd be hanging out with the comics till all hours of the morning. And it would just be, you know, this ball-busting, fun sense of thing where you just were around people all the time. And there was like 20 hours a week or 25 hours a week where you were in the clubs. And to me, that's the most significant thing that changed was time. I had to figure out how 5 minutes of my time could be just as valuable as 5 hours of somebody else's time. And that was probably the hardest transition. And I probably still failed because it's like one of the things that I don't understand about is how to really, you look at everything you have, like I probably have 4,000 emails in my inbox, okay? I still function, I still get it all done, figure out how to get it done. But it's like a point in time where, you know, you have time with the kids, you want to spend time with your kids, you want to spend time with your family, and you realize what your priorities are. So you have to be better, quicker, and spend the time on the things that are going to be important to the clients and the projects that you know you're dealing with. And the other things you have to not work on as much. Like you used to do sets all over the place and do a set here and a set here. And people used to tell you, hey, the more sets you do, the better the comedian you're going to be. But at a certain point in time, you realize, hey, you know, am I going to be on my deathbed wondering about that I did that 7th extra set that year? Or am I going to be on my deathbed thinking about this wonderful moment I had with Nikki or with my son or my other son?
Yeah, I also don't need to do those sets anymore because I'm sleeping with the writer.
That's right.
The fact that my wife wakes up and goes, hey, you should do a joke about Dateline and ID, and it turns into a 20-minute bit. It's not lip service. She really does write an astounding amount of material.
It's incredible. I don't even know.
Barry's going to read an email that's very important, and I really want to tell you guys, first of all, thank you for the shoddy sound quality and bearing with us because we're doing this on the fly. But I really cannot tell you guys enough what the Amazon banner means, and please don't fast forward over this because it's from my heart. But look, my kids are going to college. There's no way around it. And I've told both my boys, even the 3-year-old as he's picking his own ass, going, look, Daddy, there's poop on my fingers. They are going to college, and college is expensive. So when you click the Amazon banner at jmohr.com, the kickback I get is an absolute direct deposit to my son's college account. I never see that money. The best way you can help me if you like this podcast is to go to jmohr.com, click the Amazon banner. like Adam Murray. Jay, as someone who works overnights, let me thank you very much for putting out quality entertainment that keeps me awake during the early hours of the morning. I want to mention that I clicked through the Amazon banner at jmoore.com and I picked up my fiance a blue diamond pendant to match her ring for our first and last engagement anniversary. The wedding is in January. That is the least I can do, and I know it's going towards a worthy cause. Education is priceless, and again, thank you for keeping me awake and entertained. Thank you, Adam from New Hampshire, Adam Murray. Adam, thank you. And I'm telling you guys, the Amazon banner is the absolute lifeblood of the podcast. Barry Katz has a podcast called Industry Standard, and I interviewed Barry as Barry, and I went down a rabbit hole because at first it was like all fun and games, but then I had to ask Barry very serious questions about his life. Barry's been through some horrible tragedy in his life. Listen to the episode of Industry Standard when you get a chance with me on it with Barry, because then I realized I had to ask Barry like the most serious questions, gut-wrenching questions as Barry Katz. So I had to convince myself mid-interview that I was in a movie playing this guy. I didn't tell you this, but I was like, how am I going to ask Barry about his first wife dying of anorexia as Barry? Because they're all fun and games. And I'm like, just make believe you're doing a movie, and this is like a great interviewer. You're playing this interviewer. So I did it. It was just too bizarre for words, and it blew the tweets I got and the emails I got at jmoore.com, and I will answer your emails if you email me, were motivating, and I will speak for Barry. When you guys email us at barrycast.com or jmoore.com and you tell us what you liked about a podcast, it means the world to us, and we do respond, and we love having that connection with you guys. And we want to separate ourselves from the pack, from other people with podcasts that might be a little standoffish and just go, yeah, buy this product, whatever. But if you guys ever want to communicate with Barry or myself, send the tweets, send the emails. It means the world to us that you guys are interacting with us. And Barry got a great email that he wanted to read.
Yeah, and I've gotten more response from that podcast than anyone that I've ever done, because it was like, not to date myself, but it was like an All in the Family episode, the ones where you're laughing hysterically and then you're like crying for no reason and then you're laughing again. It was just so incredibly emotional. And this email comes from a guy who is doing something really, really special. He does an app called Big Play Scoring, which I'll tell you about later, which isn't a plug or anything like that. His name is Michael Knapp, and I read every email and I respond to every email, and I love the positive feedback, and I also love the negative feedback because I want to know what's good and bad. And it says, Barry, you no doubt are being deluged by thousands of comments just like this, but thank you so much for the selfless and generous, riveting honesty of your 1-year anniversary Industry Standard podcast. The vision of concept, the genius entertainment spun on the fly, and the trust in each other, you and Jay, to go down dark paths was inspirational. Bravely exploring your pasts, ripping apart and laying bare and raw your most intimate, personal, and literally soul-jarring experiences, knowing that despite the pain of revisiting it, the result would be the generation of pure magic for those who hear it. You and Jay Mohr appear to have come out as even stronger human beings than when you began the podcast just an hour earlier. It was a genuine privilege and capitalized honor to have heard it. It was a testament to the true love between you two, as well as evidence of the richest bestowed upon both of you for your commitment to lives worth living. All present for that very special hour must have departed knowing they witnessed something truly amazing. Wilt's 100 points, Aaron's 714th home run, and Montana Clark's the catch, all pale in comparison. Thank you, Michael Knapp, Big Play Scoring.
That was a big podcast. And like I said, if you listen to Industry Standard with Barry Katz, the one with me on it, I bet you guys didn't know Barry buried a wife buried his dad when he was 4 years old. He buried his bride when he was in his early 30s, or late 20s, I should say. And Barry's been through hell and back. And as a manager, it's a tough gig. We're rounding third here, so I'll just let you guys know this. And I had this conversation with my sister Virginia when I was just in Cincinnati. And by the way, everybody that came out to Cincinnati, that was off the charts fun. And I can't tell you guys the magic of a live show. And if you tweet your friends and you ask anybody that you know that's been to a live show, there's just nothing like it. It's so amazing. Like, you know, you go to these cities and these people are strangers, and you do a show, and then I always do a meet and greet after my shows, and people come up to me and they say like the kindest things, and one lady got me a leather-bound Bible, like a travel Bible. And, the Cincinnati Reds dropped off a Cincinnati Reds jersey, and and that's from the podcast and the radio show, but it's almost embarrassing for me. And it's so humbling, but it sounds cliche, but it's true. It's humbling, and I get almost embarrassed because the podcast means so much to people. And there's times where I go, you know what? I don't fucking want to do this podcast anymore. It's a pain in my ass, especially in the last 2 weeks of my life. The wheels have just fallen off. And that's why Barry and I are recording this on my phone at a card table in my garage through an app. Hopefully this is recording. And I just need you guys to know I am just as happy to see you as you guys are to see me. And when the live shows happen, there's nothing like it. And everybody that went to Cincinnati, Edmonton, all those dates. And I have Denver coming up. And if you want to help me out, please come out, because for some reason Denver is slow. But all my shows are meet and greets for a reason, because, man, I learn more. I get down because of the negativity on Twitter and just assholes, trolls reaching out and just stirring shit up and creating negativity. But when I meet you guys face to face, what you say to me in like that 30, 60 seconds after the show at the meet and greet, it like reaffirms my faith in humanity, that there's actually like this great group of people out there, you, that listen to the podcast. And I'm so happy it's reaching you and you guys get it. And it's positivity. And there's so many people out there that work in the dark. And I know I speak for Barry. We just really only want to work for the light. And the reason I'm saying this is when I meet you at my shows, you guys say things to me and I realize it's working. So that was a very long way of me just saying thank you.
Yeah, and since we are heading into the final roundup, I thought to myself, since, this is sort of going to be some kind of simulcast, that I actually get to interview you and ask you a few questions to finish this off. Is that legal?
Yeah.
All right.
About to piss my pants, so let's do it quick.
Well, you want to go pee now?
No, I just don't know how long this app records for. So go on, let's get after it.
Forever.
Man.
I have probably 4 questions. Number 1, what was the moment? Where were you? What was happening before you ever had a thought about being in the entertainment business? What was happening, and what was the moment that happened where you said, I want to be in this business?
I didn't have it, but I knew I always liked watching the business. I used to watch like Star Search, and I would just wait for the comedians to come out, and even the singers. And I never had a moment as a kid of I have to be in show business, but I knew I had to watch show business. So I never had a moment like that until I was actually in it. It wasn't until I was watching public access television in New Jersey where there was an ad on the screen that said, hey, if you're a teenage comedian between the ages of 13 and 17, we're having a teenage comedy night at Rascals Comedy Club in West Orange, New Jersey. And I went, oh, that's why. So I guess that is the answer. And I was 15 years old, and my friend James Barone on a Sunday drove me to a comedy club at noon in the basement of this comedy club. And we had to do comedy in front of other 16-year-olds. Not exactly your demographic audience. And as Buddy Hackett used to say to me, think of how bad you were the first time you did stand-up comedy, but they still had you back. Like, you can't take an at-bat in the major leagues. You can't start your career 0 for 30 and have a coach and a hitting coach and a manager go, great, love what we're seeing. Hey, we're playing tomorrow night in Tampa. Make sure you're batting third for us, okay, pal? But Buddy Hackett always used to say to me, when you first do comedy, you're using less than 1% of your talent. But somebody sees something in that one that 0.0001% where they're like, hey, there's another open mic on Wednesdays. Why don't you come join me and come over there? So it was then.
Got it. So you must have done something right, at least, even if it was 1% of it.
Yeah.
Next question.
Bear with me.
You've done tons of podcasts. You've done tons of comedy shows. You've done probably over 300 episodes of television. You've worked with, I believe, 13 Academy Award-winning actors in films. If all of your experiences
were falling in the ocean,
and you only had to say one story that would be like, this is my holy shit moment that no one can ever take away from me, and this is like a story or something that's so fucking crazy or unique or special that no one would ever believe it, but it would bring great inspiration to people or great entertainment to people, what would it be?
Well, it's a two-pronged answer, because the first way you set it up was, to me, my holy shit moment that's still in my head on a day-to-day basis is, again, when I was talking to Buddy Hackett, I was having huge arguments with the executives at ESPN during More Stories, and he said, you're right, because they never walked the last 60 feet. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, every night you go on stage.
Could you do it as Buddy?
You're right. Of course you're right. Because they never walk the last 60 feet. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, every night you walk to the microphone. It's about 60 feet from the side of the theater to the mic. It's about 60 feet. It's a 60-foot walk. And every night you go out there and you do it. And these people that you're arguing with, they got balls big enough to go right backstage, but they could never make that walk. They can't walk that last 60 feet. Of course you're right. But then in that conversation he said, but that's not the real problem. And I said, well, what is the real problem? He said, you've never made up your mind. Are you an actor or are you a comedian? And I said, I'm both. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, well, which one am I? He goes, I'm not you. That's something you got to discover on your own, kid. And to this day, it's a discussion I think I'm born a comic. My wife thinks I was born an actor, who's a good enough actor that I can act as a comic every night. But Buddy said, are you a comic or you have to pick one and then go like hell in that direction. And to this day, I still don't know the answer.
He said there was another one.
Those are the two. Oh, and then the other one is my holy shit, this is show business moment.
Yeah.
When I did the Jiminy Glick show with Martin Short, it was on Comedy Central, and Michael McKean played his band leader, and Bernie Brillstein managed them, and there was no prep. Like when you do Conan O'Brien or Letterman or Jay Leno or Fallon, they talk to you for 2 days and get your story straight so that the host can just look down at a card and go, so what, you just went parasailing in Uruguay? What's that about?
And what's amazing is just to pull the curtain back for all of your audience and mine, is that there is never a talk show appearance where it goes exactly the way that you've rehearsed it with that segment producer. There's always running out of time. They chop a question out. They change it. Sometimes you don't end on the big closer that you're supposed to, and they say, well, we got out of time. You're like, wait a second, I got my big thing that I went over with Frank Smiley.
Frank Smiley from Conan. I used to talk to him for like hours, and I would tell him a bit, and he'd go, all right, what else? And I'm like, we've been on the phone for 3 hours. It's a 6-minute interview. And he goes, I know, just give me something else. And when I did Jiminy Glick on Comedy Central, it was Bernie Brillstein, me, Martin Short, and Michael McKean. And I was standing backstage ready to go out, and I realized there was no pre-interview, and it was all ad-libbed. And it was while I was talking to Martin Short as Jiminy Glick. I'm here with David Spade. I'm not David Spade. Why aren't you David Spade? I realized no one ran the show by me. Nobody prepped me because they had faith in me to just stay in there in the trenches with these two monsters of ad-libs. Michael McKean from Spinal Tap and every Waiting for Guffman movie, and of course Martin Short, who I don't have to explain anything about Martin Short, but Bernie Brillstein, probably the greatest manager that ever lived, and Barry would nod his head yes to that, present company included. They just simply trusted that I was going to go out there and swing for the fucking fences. And that occurred to me like during the interview, and I got like awash with joy. That was the moment that I realized that other people thought I was as great as I thought I was. It all comes back to egomania when it's me. What's the other question? Oh, finally, somebody thinks I'm as fucking great as I think I am.
I remember that show and that episode and the way you played it. I remember it was so fascinating.
Like how Grodin did with Letterman. I just did that. Like I was angry the whole time.
Yeah.
But what was the other question? Because we are rounding third.
We are rounding third.
Go to the Amazon banner at jmoore.com and come see me please come see me in Denver at the Comedy Works. All right, stop begging.
Your biggest disappointment professionally?
You know this one. What am I going to say?
I don't want to say. I don't want to spoil it. Go. Tell your audience.
Give me the initials of the movie.
I don't want to give you the initials of the movie, but I think to me, one of the biggest disappointments in your life was, if I had to guess, and this shows you how wrong I could be after 24 years of knowing you. So when you're doing Jerry Maguire and you're working with Tom